Welcome to my channel where we cover the lore of Final Fantasy XIV. We cover the stories both big and small, the epic and the cute, the silly and the tragic. I hope you all enjoy the ride, and welcome to the Chronicler of Lore. After facing down Sin Eaters and Light Wardens on the first, the Warrior of Light heads back to Ishgard just to make sure Sedergu and Riel haven't gotten themselves into any trouble. Ironically enough, Cid has a letter for you, but before he gives it to you, he wants to hear a bit about what you and the Scions have been getting into. The minute you start to mention other worlds and stuff, Cid is totally lost. To be fair, it is all pretty confusing, so he gets you to break it down for him, a lot like what I do on this channel. While the story is incredible, it doesn't really surprise him. He knew you were special in the first place. You had to be to become a Dark Knight, so nothing you accomplish will ever be unbelievable to him. The part of the story that interested him the most was Thancred and how he had to look after the reincarnation of his surrogate daughter. It's something he can relate to since he's doing the same thing for Riel. Hearing that he thinks of her as his daughter makes Riel extremely upset, and she storms off after calling him a very colorful version of a chocobo's backside. Cid doesn't know why they made her so mad, but it's obvious that she has a crush on him. I wonder just how old Riel actually is. Because of the way Ellison grows, she might actually be about 20 years old. They basically hit puberty twice, and the second time they grow like 3 feet and start to actually look like adults. Imagine being in college and still looking like a middle schooler. I guess that would be kind of frustrating. Cid decides to take this moment to give you the letter he had mentioned. It was delivered by a woman named Looney, but she wasn't the one who wrote it. If you want to know more, he tells you to go and find her because he has an angry girl to deal with. The letter is a very vague yet detailed thank you note, meaning it says a lot while saying absolutely nothing, leaving you with no clue who wrote it, so you go and see Looney to see if she knows more. She turns out to be the woman you saved from the Temple Knights when you first became a Dark Knight. She still remembers all the violent threats you made while scaring off all of the Knights, and it makes her smile. I personally think it was the giant sword you were swinging around that caused them to run off, but the threats were an added bonus that apparently made the Knights decide to never bother the woman again. While her life is great because of you, she wasn't the one who wrote the letter. A knight named Patronat had given it to her so she could give it to the hero of the Scions. He's at the congregation if you want to find out where he got the letter from. He didn't write it either. Orella of Rauga's Reach gave it to him. He had spent some time there after the Battle of Gimlet Dark, and if you had to guess, whoever sent the letter to the Reach had heard of the fight between you and Xenos, and how you'd been brought to the Reach afterwards. But by the time the letter got there, you had already been moved to Ishgard. Looney had recognized your description, which is why he'd given the letter to her. He figured she'd see you before he did, and he was right. However, if you want to know more about the letter, you should ask Orella. That's a lot of traveling to find out who wrote a simple letter, but you're invested now, so you head to the Reach. Orella tells you that the letter came with some supplies from Little Alamigo. She thinks the sender thought that if Lise would have seen the letter, she would have given it to you. But Lise didn't even notice it considering the fact that she was fighting a war at the time. This thing is getting a little ridiculous, but since you've gone this far, you head to Little Alamigo to hopefully find out who sent the letter. Gundobald, a man who you've known since the early days of your adventuring, had agreed to send the letter because of how heartfelt it was. But since it's clearly bothering you to know who wrote the thing, he sends you to speak to a man named Godherd to get the answers. Godherd is someone else you've met before. He's the merchant who was angry at you for bringing his goods back covered in blood. He'd even tried to make you pay for the damages. After that day, he had made a lot of bad decisions that left him in debt to some people who took almost everything he had. When he had time to think, he realized just how wrong he had been to act like he had with you after you had helped him for free. He had decided to start a new life. He took some plants and became an apprentice to some botanists where he's proven himself to be quite good at the work. He just wanted to tell you how you changed his life and to thank you. As a gift, he gives you one of his flowers, even though it's primarily used at funerals. And that makes you think back to Frey and how he was never given a proper send-off. So you decide to head to Kurthus, the place where you talk to Frey the most, and wait for him to appear. Your darker half manifests after you leave the flower as an offering. In the beginning, you needed a voice to say all of the things that you couldn't, But now, having come to terms with the complex person that you are, the Warrior of Light no longer defines herself by how other people see her. She no longer has to hide her anger and frustration or fears or grief for fear of how it'll affect those around her. What this little journey has done, it's shown her that there's no need to fear the darkness within herself, because even that has the power to change someone's life for the better. This concludes the story of the Dark Knight, at least for now. If you enjoyed this video and my other content, hit the like button and subscribe. And if you really want to support me, become a member of the channel and buy me a coffee once a month. Until next time, guys, later.